Conspiracy theories flourish. Self-censorship is back. Many of us are lonely. We have now added the reality of the climate apocalypse to the threat of nuclear apocalypse. The tacit acceptance that there are certain categories of people, refugees, migrants, the uprooted, the occupied, the incarcerated, the permanently poor, whose lives are essentially superfluous, has not changed much since the Second World War. The camps and ghettos have changed their locations, names and appearances, but the misery remains, as does the thoughtlessly cruel administration of human beings as though they were little more than freight. Hannah Arendt is a creative and complex thinker. She writes about power and terror, war and revolution, exile and love, and above all, about freedom. Reading her is never just an intellectual exercise, it is an experience. I've been reading Arendt for over 30 years, first discovering her as a graduate student in the late 1980s, just as the Cold War was ending. I liked her style, her boldness and directness, her confident irony and worldly wit. She came from a past close enough to touch. She died in 1975, 10 years after my birth, but spoke with a voice so utterly her own and in such lucid prose that she also seemed to come from out of nowhere. But it was not until I sat down to work out why we should be reading her now, in the age of Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, that I realized it was precisely the stubborn humanity of her fierce and complex creativity that I had most to learn from. Arendt is best known for her analysis of politically dark times, but her abiding question is one that is again being asked in a series of defiant, creative, and extraordinarily courageous responses to contemporary terror, occupation, and ideology. What is freedom? For Hannah Arendt, that question was neither abstract nor simply theoretical. She loved the human condition for what it was. Terrible, beautiful, perplexing, amazing, and, above all, exquisitely precious. And she never stopped believing in a politics that might be true to that condition. Her writing has much to tell us about how we got to this point in our history, about the madness of modern politics and about the awful, empty thoughtlessness of contemporary political violence. But she also teaches that it is when the experience of powerlessness is at its most acute, when history seems at its most bleak, that the determination to think like a human being, creatively, courageously, and complicatedly, matters the most. Because she had lived in a post-truth era, Arendt saw what it meant when people no longer share the same basic sense of the world they inhabit together. We need her now because she understood, as few political thinkers have done since, what we have to lose when we allow our politics to become inhuman. The last few years have again shown us both how destructive and vulnerable the human condition is. Arendt teaches that if you really love the world, and she did, you must have the courage to protect it, to disobey. For Arendt, we can only be free so long as we have free minds. What follows is a story about how Hannah Arendt came to think about her own times, which is told in an effort to think more defiantly and creatively about our own. It is also a conversation, sometimes combative, between the present and her past. Arendt never told her readers what to think. There are no quick fixes for defeating autocracy, combating populism and jump-starting social democracy to be gleaned from her work. Sometimes, especially when she wrote about race, her own thinking failed. What she offers instead is a model of how to think when politics and history are tearing up all the conventional safety rails, as they did in her time, and as they have again in the early 21st century. Having a free mind in Arendt's sense means turning away from dogma, political certainties, theoretical comfort zones, and satisfying ideologies. It means learning instead to cultivate the art of staying true to the hazards, vulnerabilities, mysteries, and perplexities of reality, because ultimately, that is our best chance of remaining human. She belonged to a generation of writers and thinkers born in the first decade of the 20th century, just before it lurched into political and economic chaos.